Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the incredible story of Pete Kane, a guy who somehow managed to turn his biggest setbacks into, well, superpowers.
So picture this. Pete Kane has just had a massive stroke. The entire left side of his body is paralyzed. He's in a wheelchair. His life has been completely flipped upside down. And you know what he tells the psychologist? He says, life is perspective. If you knew my story, you would know that this is not that big of a deal. Just, wow.
I mean, seriously, what kind of story could possibly make a life-altering stroke feel like not that big of a deal? To even begin to understand that mindset, we've got to go all the way back to the very beginning of his journey.
All right, so let's get into it. Pete's story, you see, it doesn't kick off with some big win. Nope. It starts with a whole lot of academic failure.
School was just a constant battle for him. I mean, at 17, he flunks high school English. Then at 18, he flunks out of Virginia Tech. And just to really hammer it home, he does it again at 19. It wasn't until after all that he finally got a diagnosis, dyslexia and ADD.
So, with no college degree to fall back on, he couldn't just hand over a fancy resume, right? He had to find another way. And that's when he discovered his real talent wasn't in academics, it was in connecting with people. He got pretty much every job by just picking up the phone and actually talking to someone, building a real connection.
And his first sales job, oh, it was a classic. He was hired by Planters to be Mr. Peanut. Seriously, he'd stand in Kmart's in the full costume, handing out samples and just making people smile. But the best part? On Halloween, he gave away these giant quarter-pound candy bars, and he literally created a frenzy in his neighborhood. Kids were swarming his house. It was perfect for him.
Okay, so after the Mr. Peanut gig, his early career became, well, a total roller coaster. We're talking a decade of incredible highs and some really, really deep lows. So get this, over 10 years, he had 10 different jobs. He was fired 5 times and he quit 5 times. That perfect 50-50 split led him to a pretty simple but profound conclusion about himself.
He basically decided, I'm just not employable. And that belief, as you can imagine, took a massive toll. But that instability at work, it was really just a mirror for a much deeper, hidden struggle that was going on behind the scenes.
You see, for years, while he was bouncing from job to job, he was also fighting severe depression. He had suicidal thoughts. He became addicted to prescribed stimulants like Ritalin and Adderall, just to keep going. He was living this life of constant, extreme ups and downs. So after all those years of struggle, something was bound to give. And it did. A huge, life-altering event was about to happen that would force him to completely reevaluate, well, everything.
Right at the peak of a super stressful career in digital marketing, it happened. Pete suffered a major stroke, and it paralyzed his entire left side. But this crisis, this absolute nightmare, it actually became an unexpected chance for him to take a hard look at his life.
For 49 days, he was in the hospital. 49 days where he couldn't do much of anything. With half his body completely immobile, he finally had the time, or was forced really, to just think, to reflect on his entire life. And it was in that quiet, difficult space that he had a major breakthrough.
This is the big turning point. He started to reframe his ADD. He stopped seeing it as this disability that held him back his whole life, and started seeing it as his superpower. He realized that the very same brain that made school a nightmare was actually perfectly wired for things like creativity, big picture strategy, and connecting random ideas. You know, the exact skills you need to be an entrepreneur.
So armed with this totally new perspective, this new way of seeing himself, Pete set out to build a brand new life and a new career. But this time, it was centered on his actual strengths.
He ended up creating this brilliant business model that he calls the podcast flywheel. It's perfect for him. It starts with his podcast, where he just learns people's stories. That's step 1. Step 2, he uses those stories to build real relationships, connecting people who should know each other. From there, he creates a community, a network where everyone can collaborate. And finally, he develops courses and tools to help that whole community succeed. It's a system built entirely on human connection.
And at the heart of it all is this one simple idea. When you're serving others, it just lightens up your life. This philosophy of service is now the core of everything he does. You know, all those years of struggle, they gave him a deep sense of empathy and a real desire to give back, which he now pours into his work with organizations like Rotary.
So Pete Kane's incredible journey, from flunking out of college to finding this life of purpose, it really leaves us with a powerful question to think about. What if our greatest struggles, the things we think are our biggest weaknesses, are actually the foundation for our greatest strengths? His story suggests that maybe, just maybe, the parts of ourselves we see as flaws are really just superpowers in disguise, waiting for us to see them in a new light.